Interesting that they're focusing in on Binance in particular. Chainalysis is saying more funds tied to criminal activity flowed through Binance than any other crypto exchange. Jesse, how long has the DOJ been looking at this, do you think?
Well, I mean, the indications that we have are that this is going on for many months. I mean, it's, you know, when you talk about criminal activity, the severity of breaking, you know, laws like the Bank Secrecy Act, money laundering rules, so on and so forth. When you talk about, you know, a criminal investigation, it's much harder to prosecute than, say, you know, a civil investigation that an agency like the Securities and Exchange Commission would pursue. So, you know, these investigations take months, more likely even years. So, you know, this is not something where you launch an investigation and we see, you know, indictments flying immediately and perp walks and that sort of stuff. This is going to go on for some time.
It's going to go on for some time, and obviously this is looking into potential past behavior here, Jesse. A lot of people, of course, want to know, do we get to a stage in Washington where we start to see that sort of preemptive regulatory crackdown, more rules in place ahead of time that could maybe slow for what now has been a lot of progress made with regards to the crypto industry?
Well, yeah, one thing I would say about that is, I mean, there's a strong argument to be made that they better regulate it sooner rather than later because, you know, there's investor protection issues, but there's also just investor losses issues. I mean, so many people have gravitated to the crypto space, and if you just sort of let it get bigger and bigger and bigger, you know, any kind of regulatory crackdown, investors don't respond to that by driving a market up. It usually drives the market down. So when you know, the SEC, other agencies start announcing a lot of rules, a lot of people have invested in this space and, you know, some of their holdings will probably hit losses. So better to do that now when it's big and, you know, not do a move like that when it's hugely big, because it's also, the bigger something is that's grown in the shadows, the harder it is to even regulate it.
Jesse, further complicating the story, we were hearing that the ransom payment from Colonial Pipeline was indeed made in cryptocurrency. Our previous guest just told us, well, the good news is there's a paper trail for everything, but the bad news, and maybe actually the good news for regulators, is this sort of further makes their point of why they need to regulate this, because it is indeed being used in some instances for this type of sort of bad actors. Does that help a regulator's case?
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing I would say about that is, yes, it is easier, allegedly, to track people on the blockchain, but I haven't seen many of these ransomware hackers brought to justice. Have you? So I don't know that crypto is making it that much easier for regulators to get a hold on them. I mean, it's certainly, without a doubt, its activity, but attacks like this on, you know, vital infrastructure, you know, shutting down fuel, leading to shortages on the East Coast, U.S. for several days, still going on now. I mean, if that's not a motivator for the Justice Department to crack down on illicit activity, I'm not sure what is, because it's obviously got a big economic impact as well.
Yeah. Of course, Binance sort of have seen this coming to a certain extent, Jesse. They had Brian Brooks recently become the Binance US CEO. He himself was top banking regulator, led the Office of Controller of the Currency. How much are you seeing companies starting to try and, well, negotiate, talk to these regulators, try to get ahead of all this regulation to ensure it is fit for purpose?
Well, there's an old phrase in Washington that if you're not at the table, you're on the table. So every firm, you know, whether it was Microsoft in the 90s or it's Binance now, the bigger you get, you end up with a target on your back. And any, you know, smart K Street lobbyist would tell you that once you get to that point, you need a DC strategy and you need to bring on people who know these agencies, you know, have relationships with lawmakers, so that you can, as you say, negotiate with them and make your case and explain why you don't need to, you know, be indicted or shut down or, you know, whatever.